All right, welcome back. We're going to do lighting today. I'm going to briefly go over some tools. I'm going to briefly go over this one source 4, and I'll blend in some more lights along the way visually during the lab, or during the lecture online. But we're going to go over the parts of the instrument, how to hang it, right? So how to put it on the pipe, how to install it, and then I'm going to show you how to focus the light, right? So briefly, got some gloves. Typically, you wear gloves because these things get hot when they're turned on, so you want to protect your hands. I got 2 different wrenches, just a regular, C-wrench. We use the C-wrench for a lot of things, but mainly on the lighting instrument to tighten up the C-clamp and make adjustments. But you'd also need this for, a cheeseburger, things like that. I have this, it's a speed wrench. This one's designed specifically to be used with lighting instruments, right? So it has the one socket here that fits the C-clamp bolt, has this reverse side to tighten up the C-clamp attaching to the yoke, right? And then it has this little guy on this side for this little bolt right here. This little bolt right here is called a fuck nut, right? The reason it's called that is because a lot of people, over torque it. When you snap this little bolt, you say fuck. But yeah. I'll sort of go over that a little bit more when I hang it. Right. So you have the instrument in its complete. This is a source 4, sort of like the standard. Right. Should avoid laying it on its side, but for a couple minutes it should be fine. You have the barrel in the front. You have the main housing, C-clamp, yoke, and then you got some adjustments. So this one on the side, loosens the yoke, and then you can tighten it for different positions. These right here, right, on 4 sides. These are the shutters, right? We use these to, make adjustments to the output of the light. Again, I'll show you when I, plug it in and focus it. But yeah. That's pretty much that. With the source 4, you have a barrel knob, right? So right on the back here. And then you could actually turn the barrel in relation to the instrument itself, right? So there's that. And then down near the barrel, right, so there's the barrel. You have this knob right here. And this, allows you to adjust the sharpness. I'll show you that in a couple minutes. All right. So that's pretty much that. You got the tail with your stage pin. All right. Here we have a gel frame, right? So because this is a conventional light, you use a gel frame and then you buy gel. Put it in here, that's already cut the size, and you can change the color that way, right? So typically, there's 2 slots, right? The gel wants to be in the first slot, closest to the light, and then the slot furthest away from the light is for other accessories, like a top hat or a barn door, something like that. You have this lock on the top here, right? That's to keep all the shit from falling out, right? Because you got to imagine these lights are, above actors, they're above patrons, customers. So everything wants to be secured. Sometimes depending on, what you might have out here, there might be an additional safety cable going to that effect. This is a safety cable, right? So when you hang the instrument, you run this through the yoke, and make this loop around the pipe. So just in case something got loose or something got, knocked the wrong way, this will, protect this whole thing from falling. Right. So yeah. So one thing I want to show you with this clip, you can see you have to push that way and then lift up. All right. So it's got a spring. So you just got to keep that in mind. It's usually, whenever I've done this lab in the past, everyone's like, "Oh, it doesn't work." You gotta push and lift up. So yeah, that's that. All right. So normally, these would be on the rack or something like that. They'd be stored in the, sort of closed position, right? The barrels are all the way up. The shutters are in. This is straight. And usually, you'll find it where the tail is like, it's like that. All right. So now we get it. And now we're going to go hang the light. All right. So I'll take this C-wrench. So we'll hang it right here. Alright, so I loosen this, just put it there. And what you want to do right away, like before you, adjust anything, turn anything, you want to lock this in, right? Just by hand, right? This way, it's not going to fall. Once it's tightened up by hand, come back, and you're going to tighten it up with a wrench, right? Just a little quarter turn, right? So quarter turn, and that's all you should need. You really shouldn't be like, wrenching it down. So now, in order to spin it, we got to go with that little bolt, right? You got to loosen that one up, right? Spin a little, turn it, and then tighten it by hand, and then just tighten it. And like I said, again, don't like use all your body weight. It doesn't take a whole lot. Right? So now everything's locked up. When you first hang the instrument, before you even think about plugging it in or anything like that, open the shutters, right? So that when you have everything plugged in and you have all the lights laid out, when the board op is ready to do a dimmer check, right? So a dimmer check is when you check all the instruments, by cycling through everything. If all these shutters are closed, there's going to be no light output, right? So they're gonna assume that something doesn't work, something's not connected, maybe the lamp might be bad. So more often than not, it's because someone didn't open the shutters. So whenever you hang a light for the first time, on the batten, just open the shutters. That's pretty much that, right? So I'm going to demonstrate a little bit, right, how to focus. Before I go too far, right, we have the safety cable, right? It's got a little carabiner, and then just a little, loop. So it goes through the yoke, and then you make that connection, right? And it just sort of sits like that. Sometimes what you'll do is maybe wrap it around twice if you can. Sometimes there's not enough. Sometimes it gets sort of weird on spacing, but it keeps the safety cable sort of away from the instrument just a little bit more. Definitely, ask your supervisor how they prefer it. Some people are very, very fucking picky. And you also might find sometimes these are, maybe pre-attached, to the yoke so that they cannot be taken off. So you gotta adjust. All right, so now we have our tie line, right? That's that, generic string that we use to tie up cables and such. You want to take your tail and place it pretty, whichever direction the cables are going to run. My cables are running that way. and you want to tie it pretty close to the C-clamp, right? You don't want to tie it over here, right? So, because if you need to make adjustments, there's no play, right? These tails are a predetermined size, so that if it goes here, you could spin this, a bunch of different ways and still have some slack. Sometimes, if the slack is sort of too much of an inconvenience, what you can do is once you have your position locked in, you can come back and tighten it up, right? Maybe add another piece of tie line, tighten it up. But generally speaking, you hang the light, and then you use your clove hitch tying abilities, and you tie that up, right? And that's that, right? So let's, I just got this stage pin connected. Normally you'd run it. Let's do that. I'll just tie it up. Have this one piece. You can see this is actually left on from a previous show. So you have, I believe this is channel 133 and unit number 6, right? Instrument number 6. Right. This right now is not connected to any dimmers, so once I plug it in, it's actually going to be, ready to go, full wattage, right? Speaking of which, if you can see this number here, 575. Typically with these Source 4s, there's 750 watt and 575. Normally, you'd write it on the yoke so you could easily identify it. Some people will tag the tail, but just because it says 575 does not mean it's that wattage. Just a heads up. I've been yelled at a couple of times, not here, of course, but different venues. So there we go. All right, so now this is the point where you'd put on your gloves, because this right here gets really fucking hot. All right. So right now I'm trying to do it like that. Alright, so, we have the light output. Now I have this knob on the bottom, loosen it up, and then from there, I'll try to do this one-handed. I don't know if you can see that. But you do that to make the image or the light either soft or hard. All right, so hard means it's a crisp, really crisp circle. Soft means it's sort of faded. So actually, sort of go up to it. So you can see it's a very, very clean, crisp line. All right. See how it's like faded, right? It's got a little bit of a wash. So that's the adjustment you can make with the barrel knob. All right, so I'm gonna sharpen that up. And you have to realize when you make this adjustment, right, the forward back, it's not like all the way forward is sharp and all the way back is soft. You have to find a sweet spot to get it sharp. All right, so now we got it relatively sharp. What I'm going to do now is use the shutters, and I'm going to trim the light to go on that flat. these shutters are opposite, right? So if I'm on the right side, if I move this, right, the left side of the light is being trimmed, right? Same thing for the bottom, right? If I do that, the top is going to be trimmed. So you got to remember, it's all opposite. So I'll try to. The pipe I'm on is a little moving, so I gotta make it work. All right. So yeah, I mean, generally speaking, you know, I focused the light on that one flat, and use the shutters to do that. Right. Now, one thing, you know, usually the person who's you know, on stage determining like where you should cut is the designer. So the designer will be facing the flat while they're on stage, and they'll sort of use their hands as like a guide for you to match. You know, depending on what it is. You know, if it's for like a, you know, a corporate thing, usually you're just sort of focusing it for a specific object or whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much focusing. You have that barrel adjustment on that bottom behind the barrel, or behind the shutter, I should say. All right. So now with this, you can actually turn your shape. It's not, sorry guys about that screech. It's not terribly common to do that, but if you're sort of pointing a light, you know, more on an angle, right? So right now I have my light, you know, relatively straight on. If you have your light more at an angle and you're trying to get like a weird position, sometimes you would make that adjustment, right? Let's see. Going over to the front. Whenever you hang the light, you want to make sure the gel clip